like to bring the meeting to order. I would like to ask Alderman Davis to do the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Let us pray. Almighty, most loving God, we thank you for the many blessings that you bestow upon Southport. Today, we ask that you guide us to make good and right decisions so that we can properly meet the challenges that come with those blessings. Amen.
I want to start off by thanking our audience. So I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. So the first agenda item is the consensus on a budget outcome.
Well, it's time to start our budget deliberations. And in order to do that, and for Lance and Dory and I to be able to help you get where you want to go, we need to know where you want to go. So in speaking after the meetings with the department heads, we kind of got a sense that we had 7 different views of where the budget should go. So we thought I thought if we could spend this time going one by one of where you think you might want to end up, then we could work together to come up with some options to get you there. So anyone care to go first? Of course not. Dory's going to be our scribe. All right, you're up, Frank.
Good.
I've been sitting there taking a look at this stuff for the last days and going over and over in my mind trying to figure out, what we got. How much do we have? How much money? What do we got to spend? Where do we cut? And right now, my mind is just still spinning. I haven't really come in and pinpointed one thing. One of the items I looked at was, we redo the tennis courts, 160K, I believe that was. And I thought, dear Lord. But then I took a look at another source and I said, well, that's about right. So I really don't know where to say, okay, I've done dozens and dozens of budgets, but never one that has this many complexities in it. So I'd like to hear what somebody else has and then see if that kind of chimes with what I've got in my mind.
Okay, Karen, you want to do second?
I'll start.
Rebecca.
I want to go revenue neutral. We have a whole bunch of extra glut in the budget right now that I think we can cut out. And I think that we have to look at our future, not just what we need right now. I think there's some AV equipment, there's some resurfacing of things, there are some things that although it would be great to do, are not need-to-dos right now. So I think that we need to really look at where we're spending and know that we have a shortfall coming at us, and we need to make sure that we are using our dollars in the best possible way.
Thank you. That was exactly what I was looking for. Robert? Oh, sorry.
Did you want to go?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I too have been looking at this thing for a long time, ever since we got the first set, and it's overwhelming. My approach has been, what do we absolutely need, and what do we want? what would be good to have, but what do we have to have? And as we trim back what do we want and focus first on what do we need, then I think we've got a good start. I would like us to get to the point where I'm not going to say don't raise taxes, but raise taxes in a very small increment. I was looking at a headline in the New York Times today that was embarrassingly self-evident. The editor should have been ashamed of himself.
Excuse me,
was,
I've got citizens saying that they don't have sound when they're, okay, thank you.
I'm sorry?
The people watching can't hear, so Cheyenne's working on it.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
The headline was, high interest rates hit the poorest the most. Well, gee, of course they do. And we should look at this in terms of how is this budget going to hit the people who are least able to pay higher taxes. And a guiding principle perhaps can be when hit is a verb, it's almost always followed by poor or poorest. People who can afford high taxes, are they hit or are they just a light tap? But we have plenty of people in this town who are on fixed incomes, and whatever we do to raise their property taxes or the domino effect, if their landlord's property taxes are raised, their rent will be raised. So I want to approach this from the what can we cut to get us to the lowest possible tax hit.
Alderman Spencer Dicey, I thought I saw you at one point, yeah.
So I would like to split the 1.2 million in thirds.
Well, just so you know, Lance and I have been talking about this. We're figuring you're more at 1.5.
1.5, okay,
Yeah.
great. Split it in thirds, so we have a 2 or 3 year track record of what we've done, what we needed to get us to figure out what the future will be for us. I don't think anybody knows what the future will be for us until we go through a few years. So split it, and then we're going to have to charge 1 or 2% plus cut some things, 200,000 or 300,000 out of our wish list, maybe one of those items. So cut in thirds, so we have a longer time to get our act together in simple terms. And I don't believe in revenue neutral tax. I don't believe in it. Why did our property values go up double, but you want the city to operate on the same budget that is no more? When a Pepsi is now $2.50, how do you expect us to do what we did 2 or 3 years ago? So we're really trying to put the burden on the people that come to work every day, make them pay the cost, make them squeeze the dime when they're struggling themselves. So we've got to grow up and pay the bills. Thank you.
Alderman Mosteller.
Alderman Spencer, I want to play off of what you just said, looking at it, and this may be a question for Lance, because the fact that the consumer price index goes up 3.5 this year, I'm looking at some statistics, and these statistics vary slightly depending on what you're looking at, but how do we keep the budget, to your point, how do we not increase? I want a solution, because we all talk about not raising taxes. I know that in larger cities, they don't do it because they have so much growth coming in, but I would like to see the percentage of growth, because I really appreciate the fact that y'all did this to prove that we were revenue neutral last year, much to my chagrin, so that's good. I was grateful to have that knowledge. And what it pointed out to me was, looking, and in this I see, and I may not be reading it right, Lance, but it looks like basically from 22 to 23, we had a 1.1% increase in revenue across the board, how it worked out. I'm looking at where it says real property results, and you've got 22 valuation, 23 valuation, and then change.
Could I add a question to that will help us, I think, as we go forward? It is the definition, and probably Lance, you might be the best one to ask. Can you define very clearly what revenue neutral means?
That will not be me who does that one. 'Cause
Yeah, a
I've
whole
never
bunch
heard
of
that
people
term
think
in my
it means
life.
tax neutral.
It did prove that. Actually,
It's not tax neutral.
no.
Sorry to put you on.
I'm definitely on the spot here. I'm still jet lagged, so bear with me. Correct. Okay, so the analysis, I guess, that you're all referring to that went out in the last week was in response to the question, basically, as I understood the question, revenue neutral meant, did we collect more real estate tax in 23 than we did in 22? Because I think the objective was collect the same number of dollars in 23 versus 22. And I believe that the city nailed that as about as close as you could get it, considering all the moving parts, right? We came within, as I broke down the property scrolls for the 2 years, what I have to call existing properties, meaning they weren't materially improved from one year to the other, they just were reassessed. City came within, what, $50,000 on a, you know, billions of dollars worth of valuations have come in neutral on that. I'm sorry, I'm on personal property, I'm not on real. Yeah, the real came within $33,000 on, you know, on a close to a $4 million tax basis of being neutral. And then we had properties that were clearly improved. They were the value of a lot in 22, then they were the value of a complete or a partially complete house in 23, which did add, that's the 1% basically where that money came from. So we had a little bit of growth in what we were taxing, but in the tax base from 22 to 23, I believe we hit it about as close as neutral as we could possibly have hit it. So,
and so that's my question is, and help me understand. The 1.1% is basically the increase we saw. I'm going to use the word growth, the growth that we saw from one year to the next. Could I boil it down to that?
Yeah, properties being improved.
Right. Well, but then, so I guess my question is, if we're doing, I'm trying to look long-term, how do we solve this? Last year, I looked through our sister city, Charlotte. They did revenue neutral, but plus 4 point some cents. So they were not revenue neutral. Now, I don't know the circumstances of their budget and their obligations and all of that conversation. The county did not stay revenue neutral. They did a modest 0.55 increase over revenue neutral. So long-term, trying to see how, we're so small, the growth to me, that 1.1%, if I extrapolate it to the consumer price index, it's not keeping up. So how do we grow and stay consistent if we don't do incremental tax increases? And, you know, I know that's a bad word, but I don't, the money's the money.
Right.
And so,
I mean, unless the property values, unless there's a lot of development and a lot more properties to be taxed, then, yeah, the only way to grow that number is to increase the number of cents that you're charging.
I mean,
What was-
Lance Dory and I have had a meeting a number of times. There's only 3 ways you could do this, or a combination. Raise taxes, cut services, development. That's it. You have no other solutions. So it's got to be a combination of the 3 or one or the other. Oh, get this fly out of here. But that's it. There's no other way to do this. Because even if you get grants are just one-timers. That's it.
So, Alderman Spencer, with your recommendation that we split the 1.5, are we going to make up 500,000 a year with a tax increase? Is that your? So we'd have the 500,000 plus another 500 that we'd have to make up either in cuts or a tax increase.
We were looking at 1.2, now it's 1.5, so you're getting 500 every year. The 1.2 would be shortfall the first year, $700,000. So you take 300 off of a project and you do 2%. There's your money. Mark Spencer, Budget Analysis 101.
And I'm in support of
Okay,
that.
Robert's a second person. Anybody else?
Can I just say that inevitably, people think that revenue neutral means that it's tax neutral, and it's not. And we can't be revenue neutral in the sense of common understanding of that as we're going to bring in the same amount of money as we did before. So those are 2 very misleading ways of thinking about this. Clearly, we're going to have to bring in more money. Or end up with more money to deal with. And like you said, Bonnie, it's either we're going to cut some services, cut out some of the things that we believe that we need, that our different department heads have outlined as being things that would be beneficial to the city. But at the same time, you know, how much are we going to ask the taxpayers to keep going, to keep paying more and more? I really don't want to do what previous boards did, you know, to avoid raising taxes. They didn't do things and didn't do things and didn't do things, and we have reaped the results of that. We've got to deal with many things that were neglected, you know, in the name of not raising taxes. So I've got a whole bunch of things I'd like to cut. This may not be the day to talk about it, and I'm probably not fully prepared because I'm still drawing lines through things, but.
No, I mean, at this point, I'm just trying to get a general sense
Yeah.
so we can start our work to bring, you know, options to you. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. There was a community I worked with in Connecticut, and their theme that they lived there was they did not want any development, they wanted open space. So they used all their tax money and bought up all this property, which obviously means no more development. But they were willing, it was a philosophy, they were willing to have higher taxes in order to achieve that goal. So the question becomes, what is Southport's goal? And where do you want to, and I don't know if we know that yet.
So. One of the things we're dealing with here is that we are small. We're extremely small. You know, how can we expand? There's really, the only way you're going to get any more money is to possibly raise taxes, which I don't want to do. But, you know, you got to face the realities. Where is the money coming from? I don't see any other sources. Maybe I'm blind. Maybe I'm missing something completely. But in order to provide Southport services, as Tom Stanley says, I mean, it costs money to do that. And if we don't do that, we're going to have very disappointed citizens in the city of Southport.
Now, Friday, you're going to have a report from Dory on the results of the rate committee meeting, but they're not big bucks. You're going to find some, but not huge amounts of money.
As much as I like to keep the department heads satisfied that they've got everything that they need to do the jobs that they need to do and want to do. I think that we need to really look hard at adding personnel, at least as much as they have called for. Every full-time job, the salary, we can add at least 30% for benefits. And thank God we do that we are paying our employees a decent wage. But I think we're adding more personnel than we can afford right now. We can add some, but not as many as have been requested.
As far as personnel, I would like us to budget for them.
Did you mean to add people or to continue to do the right thing by adding
So we
to their
have
salary?
people that come and go. In a year or two, you might lose an employee here that we don't refill that gap. There might be somebody that has to move or something of that nature that we can drop an employee next year, the year before, of their willingness, not us cutting on the chopping block. We have turnover like that. So there might be the possibility of that spot, one of those spots that's filling a position, it might fall through in a year or two.
But my objection is to adding numerous positions, not to filling vacancies or not to adopting an attrition policy.
In the scope of things, not filling a position, as broad as our budget is, that's just going to be just a drop in the bucket. So we know we got to be more broad in what we're looking at here.
Every drop in the bucket adds up.
Oh, absolutely. But how many drops you can put in there?
Each job seems like it might be worth 0.5% of taxes if they make 40 or 50, 40, and then the 20, that's $60,000. 140,000 for 1%, right? Is that the number?
The thing, though, and I think that staff, back to say attrition or whatever, we have staff for a reason. These positions are here for a reason, and if we start making it too hard to work here because now you're picking up somebody else's duties, I would like to believe that the city manager could account for every person's job and the importance in the overall scheme of it. So I think that's a sort of circuitous route to try to do it.
I feel like we're in no man's land until we change over. We don't know what we're going to be doing 6 months from now, what we're really going to be doing, who will be doing it. After the crews run around one time and cut the grass one time, or after they do this process one time, how long does it take? We don't know until we get there. And so then once we find out what the need is next year, that kind of thing, but just shaving any kind of, right now would be futile until we know what we're going to do, what it'll take to, what it'll really shake out to be. And I'm obsessed with that, but that's what keeps me up at night. Crazy.
Mayor, any comments?
I want to be clear. I'm not talking about cutting existing positions. I am talking about adding positions that currently don't exist. But at the same time, we look at how absolutely necessary they are and think about what each of those positions will mean to the taxpayers.
Mayor?
So we've had, manager and I have had this discussion before the meeting started. So there is a group of people, any group of people out here, who say if we can add more density, more houses, we'll get more tax money. Thus, that'll be a good thing. I'm going to show you how this works in Brunswick County. So Brunswick County has been expanding at a pretty rapid rate. Their budget this year is projected to be $288 million. there's a commissioner who's in Raleigh today trying to figure out if the state can help us being the county of Brunswick, with the need for a new high school and a new middle school. The high school is estimated to cost $320 million. The middle school is $79 million. That is a lot more than our entire county budget right now. So when you talk about increasing density quickly, you do not get a penny of positive growth in your taxes or your fund balance until 10 to 15 years out. That's just a simple fact of the matter. So we're growing so fast right now, we being the county, that density and the fact that every time a developer comes in, they get the grant, the planning board allows them to put as much density as they want to have. That does not help us in the long run for 15 years. And we have to keep that in mind when we talk about those three pinnacles that the manager just talked about. You can increase density, but that ain't going to help you right now. The other part about that is, and I know we're not here yet, but there's a number of things, certainly just on this proposed capital list, that we can knock right off the top. And that would help us save some money and potentially keep more money in the bank, because if we're going to do what Alderman Spencer said, and we have the 1.2 million in the bank now, because we're allowed to take that out and keep it, and we're only going to spend $500,000 a year, we'll have to make up $1 million right there that first year. And so that's a lot of money to be making up. So it is a fact that either we're going to raise taxes, which if you got the money, as Alderman Davis said, no big deal. If you don't have the money, big deal. And so we have to figure that part out as well. I can probably look at this chart right here and cut $400,000, $500,000 without even blinking an eye, because they're wants. They're not needs. We have that project list that's, I don't know what we'll whittle it down to now. Is it 38 projects, something like that? So we need to look at that list and say, realistically, where are we going with this list? Are these needs or wants? Where do we want to go with them? How do we want to really prioritize them? It'll be very difficult with 7 independent people to come up with a true prioritization. But I would hope that we would be able to find some number of projects that we can keep it on the sheet someplace, but lower down, because the list will be prioritized, and we can decide that if a grant money came through, it's a one-time project, we fix it. Otherwise, it's just never going to happen because we just don't have that money. So I don't know how we're going to do this in the next week. I think part of that is looking at the budget where we can cut. I still have a couple of questions that I haven't got in my mind, I haven't got answered yet. And one of them is, as an example, special events. So we had an organization that did that in the past. I don't think that I've gotten, maybe I've gotten, and I missed it. If I did, I apologize. How much money do we think we could generate from special events? From the booths to the whatever it is. Put that all together, and does that come out to the cost of hiring an employee to run that for us from now on? Cut out the middleman.
Elena gave me that information. I probably emailed it. That's one of them, 1,500. I emailed to you guys. 1,500? No, 1,500 emails I emailed to you guys. But yeah, I have it once I sit down. I've got it. Okay,
so I would really like to see, I'm sorry if I missed that in the thousands of things we've seen.
I don't know if anybody else has any comments, but I don't care how you want to run it, this meeting. It's up to you guys. But I thought you might, it's a part of your agenda packet, is go through the things you wanted to talk about to make some decisions. And then we could also, actually I gave to you the answers to a lot of questions you asked during department heads. I handed it out to you today. And then we could go department, but I'm going to say something. please do not nickel and dime this budget. It's going to get you nowhere, and it's going to take you forever. So if you're going to cut big. Cut big, think big. Because if you do $100 here and $100 there, it just takes forever. And it doesn't really get you where you want to go. So it's up to you, and then afterwards we could go department by department, however. But if you want to start, Mayor, with the adjustments that you guys already brought up, we can go through those. And then the other thing I just want to mention quickly, we're not going to do what we did last year, which caused total confusion, is we will keep track of whatever you vote on, and then we will start each meeting with telling you where you're at. But we're not going to keep handing you new budget forms, because then we were all on a different page. So that we're not going to do that one again. So if that works for you. Anybody else comments for Dory to write down? Because we can work on a couple scenarios, so. All right, thank you.
So you're suggesting we take this sheet and run down it quickly?
Yeah.
That's
See
fine.
where you're at with
Because
each
there's some issues on here that we can save some money
Yeah.
on.
Okay. Thank you.
We're just going to try to reach a consensus as to whether or not to spend money, or
You can vote.
Consensus, we vote. Well, I guess we should probably vote to move something, because otherwise we'll just keep seeing it again. There's nothing until we vote, like at the end, that if we voted today, or consensus, whatever you want to say, and let's assume it was like 4-2, that at the end of the day, if new information came to us, somehow we got new information, we could revisit it if it was critical enough. But somehow, we got to start moving forward.
you're going to read them out?
All right, funding for the cemetery committee. It's listed at 3,000, and it's listed at 3,000. Are we going to basically line? They haven't in this year.
Yes, sir. So,
Go ahead.
so they've been doing some research on Smithfield Cemetery. There are a lot of hazards and things, and we're going to try to get them to present here in June. But there's going to be some money need to be spent to mediate those conditions and make them safe. That's the first thing that I see there. That's why I wanted to put this money in, so they could get started, and they wouldn't have to come back and ask for something. They could just go ahead and make a plan. So that's what the 3,000 is, and it can, yeah, please.
It's a minimum amount of money, and they actually showed me those hazards as well, and they are true hazards. So go down the line. Is there anybody who is against the $3,000?
I have a question.
Yep.
That does not include any of the care and pruning and dealing with the trees in the old cemetery?
Well, the trees, it doesn't impact the third-party contract we have for the lawn cutting, and part of the cemetery committee, I believe, is going to eventually present what they would like to see as a statement of work going forward. It won't be for this year, because this year we're already in. Statement of work, because right now, the contract that we have is pretty limited in the wording as what we want them to do. So for this year, to answer your question shortly, Lo, this 3,000 is above all of that. That's a separate line item. The cutting. Now the trees is going to be such an expense next year, or for the next couple of years, that we'll have to worry about that in that time, because those live oak need loving the care and some removal, and you can't get a crane in there. So we'll have to worry about that next year, but during the next 365 days, the cemetery committee is, I believe, going to start that discussion.
Alderman Davis, there are some student groups that are going to be coming into Smithfield Cemetery and doing some free tree work, that kind of thing, studies on what we need to do with the trees. I don't know what I don't know if it's 4-H or who the group is, but I know that.
I can't remember which North Carolina university,
Yeah.
but it's from North Carolina University.
Yes, sir. So they're going to do some stuff in Smithfield Park for the trees, but it's not a paid thing. So
Can we, at risk of nickel and diming, can we cut this $3,000 somewhat? Lee, let's make it
There-
two.
Just so you know, there's nothing in the budget,
I know.
so
So you don't have anything in the budget. They are going to need something. But why, could we leave it at 1,000?
Well, our other committees, this is in line with what the other committees administer. We actually are raising beautification because of all of their responsibilities and that sort of thing. But 3,000 is taken. So, I mean, this is really just minimal. So,
Well, forestry buys trees. Needs to get them here and until, I mean, they're just getting started and we need to see how they're going to spend this money.
Well,
come
unfortunately,
to the next meeting?
Alderman Spencer and I, because we've walked the cemetery, and I had the lesson the other day, there is a whole bunch of hazards, like impaling hazards, like metal things that are sticking out of the ground that all have to be fixed relatively quickly.
For the purpose of time, maybe we could just go down the yes or row, yes or no.
just so you know, too, those spikes are on private property. They are not on city property, so we can't order anybody to do anything. We could ask them to, but
And the $3,000 is not going to go very far if if we were to be replacing metal fencing like that, decorative metal fencing.
Alderman Mosteller, yea or nay?
This is on cemetery?
For cemetery? Yeah. Low?
No.
Alderman Kelly?
I'd like to see it at 1,000.
Alderman Spencer?
I have to face them 3,000.
Alderman Lay?
I have to go with green. Is that enough?
They seem to be happy with that for this first year and come up with a real budget for next year.
Go with 3 then.
So that's 4 in favor, and so let's move on to the next topic. The basketball court resurfacing. I take it that's behind the gym?
yes, that's not in the budget, but someone thought that it needed to get done. That's why it's on this list.
So I guess my first question is that, because I'm not smart enough to know that, does it need resurfacing? And how important is that?
I just want to speak up and say it is important and it's desperate to be resurfaced. We see kids playing on that all the time, and it is in the worst shape probably of any one thing we have. And it's utilized almost every day that I see.
Are the goals functional? Are they still, I mean, we couldn't even keep chains or nets on those goals. Are there even goals there anymore?
Yeah, there are. They have the chain kind.
I think this is a nice to have. Can we just go paint it?
Again, I mean, they're functional, they're not great, but, you know, we're also talking about resurfacing the indoor gym with a wood floor, which I also don't think is necessary. Not this year.
I don't think that's on the table.
Yeah. The other thing is, I would much rather give up resurfacing tennis courts that see much less use than this $7,000 for resurfacing a basketball court. That's way overdue. I don't think the surface itself is just paint worthy, but somebody else would have to look at it to see, to answer that question. But I would rather just postpone resurfacing tennis courts and at $160,000 and do a little $7,000 improvement for something that's utilized.
That's a very good point.
Alderman Carroll? Yea or nay?
Alderman Mosteller, are people really using that basketball? You live right across the street. I trust
Kids,
what
we
you-
see kids over there.
Steady.
Anytime we walk by, we speak to them. Sometimes we'll throw a ball back to, yeah, I'm just
Cool.
saying.
All
And
right.
it's, often and certainly more than I see people on the tennis courts.
Okay.
And I agree about the tennis courts, but, I mean, my kids don't care what the court looks like, as long as they have a place to play. If there are lines painted, they're happy.
So I believe we've got a yes and a no, is that right? I'm a no.
I'm sorry, Alderman Carroll, what did you say? No. No.
I'm no.
I'm no.
Yes.
As much as we need, I say no.
All right, it's a no. Moving on. Parks and Recreation, laptop versus desktop.
Heather told me a laptop's fine, and we will adjust it if,
Okay.
that's for the new building maintenance guys. They gotta have something.
I'm not sure what the relook at the,
Want to wait until you get to capital, but that is on the capital list.
Okay.
It's a part of the master plan for the city docks and also the land acquisition.
Sorry, is there a conversation about the Parks and Rec laptop versus desktop, or are we just making a decision on what to budget for them or not budget for them, or is the question,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
we're gonna budget for them, but what is it gonna be? Is that the question here?
That was the original question, and Heather said that they could live with the laptop, but I think our building maintenance guys have got to have something. I mean, you got two of them, not building maintenance, I'm sorry, parks. So,
But I need to.
What do they
they're the-
use?
But they're the Parks Grounds guys, right?
yes.
And what does the Parks Grounds team use a laptop for?
They do a lot with inventory and looking up different things. I mean, if you want to just take it out, then take it out.
I mean, like any staff member, they would need to create documents, do any things like that. I mean,
Hot mic.
Oh, sorry.
Do
I
the-
hope they heard.
Do the Public Works ground crews have laptops right now?
I don't think they have, I think they have desktops at their desk. I don't know. That's a question for the city manager.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Do the Public Works grounds crews currently have laptops or desktops or something of that nature?
They have something within the facility, Public Works facilities, yes.
So there's how many for how many?
I don't have that offhand. I'll try to get it from Mr. Stanley.
yeah, I would tend to think that other than some minor stuff, most of their job is outside doing things as opposed to sitting inside playing on a computer. That would be the boss's job. All right, so we don't have a figure for that, and we'll have to circle back to that, okay? Election expenses, well, that's kind of mandated, isn't it? Don't we have to,
We skipped tennis courts versus pickleball courts. That's right above
Yeah.
election.
so there's no money involved in that. There's something on here, but,
Yes, I handed out today, there is no cost differential. Bob Jarvis took a look at that. You know, it's just, it's the same, it's still got to be resurfaced, so the cost doesn't change. So, I mean, if anything, it's 4 courts. What did he have here? I think that's question number 8. Cost for pickleball versus tennis courts, the same, because it's the same resurfacing area. 2 tennis courts can hold 4 pickleball courts, and then there is the pickleball court complex down at Smithville.
We're gonna keep the cost of resurfacing those in the budget?
That's a capital expense, so if you want to get to capital, you can talk about it then.
so the question now is pickleball versus tennis. My suggestion is one park has pickleball, one park has tennis, move on, I can't walk down the street without somebody asking me about pickleball courts. So it's the fastest growing sport in the United States. And this town uses it all the time, because there's one right next to my house for the HOA, and it is in constant use, and in the middle of the day, at the heat of the day, they're still in use.
I don't disagree that we get to that point. I'm not a big fan of resurfacing these courts this budget cycle. And so not putting any expense into that right now, I think would be the best route to go. And we'd have expenses, I assume, in changing them from tennis to pickleball. And I just think we should maybe hold off on that.
I agree.
Could I ask the manager to figure out if we were to repaint? Because that's what we did in our HOA. We just repainted the lines, what that cost would be. And,
Try to get that for Friday.
yep. Alderman Kelly, your thoughts on the resurfacing?
I don't think that I think it's a great thing to have in the future, but I think at this point in time with this budget, it doesn't make sense for us at the moment.
Alderman Spencer.
Not at this time. No, sir.
Alderman Lay.
Not at this time.
All right, off the table.
We'll send them to the tennis courts over next to you.
What? They do.
Yeah, Smithville Park has a whole pickleball complex over there. I will say while we're checking on painting for the tennis courts versus pickleball, if that's going to be a thing, I would like to also look at painting the basketball court behind the city gym right now. Some of us might get out there with our rollers one day.
All right, moving on to the next, the election expense. That's we have to do, don't we?
Yeah, that was an item we didn't realize we got charged for until Dory got the bill. And so we found out that we do pay a share.
So unless I hear an objection, we'll just accept that one because we have to pay it. The next one is the mayor's salary. Oh, I'm sorry, travel.
So you have travel things that we do. Electricity, City Vision, Legislative Day. UNC School of Government has several things. And then so Electricities, League of Municipalities, City Vision, Legislative Days, UNC School, those are things that we're pretty much supposed to go to or should go to participate in those different processes. 5,000 is not enough. 10,000 would be about the right number.
Lee, you have in the proposed budget 3,000.
So what happened is we just went through a season of COVID, and without getting political, the previous administration didn't care about going out and talking. So there was none for several years. You might want to look at 2 or 3 year budget to see that, because again, when COVID came around, things changed. And the attitude was, we don't need the outside. We got it controlled on this table, and it wasn't really true. And I would remind you that sometimes you have legislative issues that people start to maybe you get threatened with. And if you're not out there in the League of Municipalities participating, running for board of directors, being involved with the lobbyist, you have no legs when people might challenge your authority or your, ETJ.
Bonnie, what are we budgeted for? 3,000?
Yeah, that's in the proposed budget.
Does that look in line with what we've spent in the past, COVID notwithstanding?
So in FY23, let me just make sure I got the right line. You spent $3,429. As of this year, you've spent $762.
762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762. 762 I'd like to keep it at 3.
We will bust that. I guarantee you.
City Vision was $1,500 this year.
I'm gonna have to agree, I'm gonna agree with Alderman Spencer that the days of thinking that this is some kind of walled-off city and we're not gonna interact with people
And-
are over.
And if y'all would have gone to City Vision, you'd have met about 30 or 40 managers that you could have had your hand pick of talking with. You've got to get out and get involved in these opportunities. We cannot lead under the dome. That's just a movie.
It was a TV show. Electricities, do we know how much that is offhand?
It'll be a solid 1,500 a person.
Then we're gonna bust this super fast, guys. So what happens if we go over budget on this? We
And-
just-
and
there's
then
no
you have
travel at that point, or we
legislative-
pull from
No, what
capital?
happens is we pull from other line items at the end of the year. That's what ends up
None
happening.
of us went to the legislative meetings in Kinston this year. We didn't do anything.
The manager makes a good point that we have traditionally had if nothing else, we budget for employees that we don't hire. So there's money every year. It's hard to find that, how much that is every year, because I haven't seen those numbers yet, nor have I ever seen those numbers. But we turn back to ourselves money every year. I mean, we haven't had a planner in how long? And we budgeted a fair amount of money for that. So if we were to keep it at 5,000, even if we broke it, I believe there'd be money that we wouldn't have to say, no, you can't go.
The only comment I do want to make, though, is I always tell elected officials, make an honest budget. Don't do that hoping that, if you need it, you're going to need it, so put it in it.
It's hedging so we don't look bad, or the idea of it. I know what the reality is. I've seen it. This is not my first go-around. I had 4 years before that I did this. I know what I'm talking about.
All right, we got to move on. So Alderman Mosteller, your thoughts on how much the travel budget should be? 3.5 or more?
I understand everything that Alderman Spencer is saying. I mean, they're expecting, so then that would be 8,000 with this additional 5. Is that what you're saying, Bonnie? Yes. So, I mean, I think that, because if it's not used, it can go back in.
It was told to me that we paid some of the Electricity's convention fees out of the Electricity's money. I don't know if that's true or not.
I think in the past, and I'll double check with Ellie, but I'm pretty sure it did come out of the electric budget.
Because I know Mr. Fisher, as our he got paid, everything got taken care of that fund. And we do have a commissioner that we need to seat and hopefully pay for that in August.
I think you've got 2 applicants for that, by the way.
So, Alderman Mosteller, your thoughts? Alderman Carroll. Alderman Davis.
Stick to 3.
Alderman Kelly.
Add the 5. I think we have to do realistic here.
So 5.
No, add. Okay.
Alderman Spencer.
10.
Alderman Lay.
I'd be a little bit more conservative and take it 8. 8.
I concur.
To be clear, we're now looking at a budget of $8,000 for alderman travel to meetings and conventions and conferences and so forth.
Have you ever been to one?
Yes, and I didn't put in for expense.
You went to Electricity's,
Not this time,
but you have been.
yes.
Okay.
Paid a salary, and I feel that part of that salary can go for this kind of thing.
Okay, so we have 5. No. I'm sorry.
She was
So as what? Oh, you got 7.
Why don't we each say the total?
I'm sorry.
3 in the budget.
Right.
Add 2 brings us to 5.
So, yeah.
She's at 8.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're at 8. And you're at 8, and I think Mark would go at 8, that's 3. And where are you at?
Everybody down here is at 8.
All right, it's at 8. Moving on to the next subject.
All right, remember, I stood pat at 3.
Good
Yep,
job.
I
Congratulations.
Yep. Increase of the mayor's salary. I'm going to stay quiet on this. I'm going to ask the mayor pro tem to handle this part of the conversation.
All right, and at this time, I guess I'll start down on this end of the table. Alderman Lay,
One hu-
Mike. Mike, please. Turn your mic on.
It's a 60-hour-a-week job. He's running all over the county, butting heads with everybody. I mean, we're paying, what, $750 a month now?
I
Get
think that's
realistic
correct.
here.
Alderman Spencer?
Absolutely. And so that money, we used to get paid per meeting, keeping track of what kind of meetings you had, keeping track of mileage, keeping this and that. He deserves that amount. It's twice as much work as it was the last time I served on this board. And so
Thank you. Alderman Davis?
No, I'd be in favor of making it on par with alderman's salary, because we too do a tremendous amount of work. It may not be very visible to the public, and I acknowledge how much work our current mayor is putting in. The job of mayor is as much work as you make it. And while Mayor Alt is putting in a tremendous amount of work, I still think that it should be at the same level as alderman.
Alderman Carroll?
I agree.
With me?
Yes.
Martin of Day.
That is not true.
Alderman Mosteller?
So this is a 61% increase, and I'm not sure plus FICA if that's an additional expense. I kind of thought that it was, which is not how the alderman salary or stipend or whatever you want to call it is figured. We're not plus FICA, are we? Oh, we are? Okay. So it doesn't show up that way. Maybe I don't understand how FICA works. Is that something we don't see? Is that something we don't see?
That's the Social Security tax. That's the city's portion of Social Security tax that's paid on the stipend.
We don't
doesn't come to
realize
your
that.
paycheck,
Yeah,
right.
gotcha.
It's a
Okay,
city
interesting.
expense.
Okay, good to know. But given that, it is a 61% increase.
While you're here, Lance, what is that number then? What is our total stipend?
Well, the FICA portion is 7.65%. So if it's $1,000, you add $70.65 a month to it, and that's what the city's expense is.
What the city's
The
expense is?
effective cost of the city.
Okay.
So, Alderman Mosteller, what was your final decision on that? I think I missed it.
Of course, I was in favor of cutting hours, so, but I didn't get any traction. So I would say keep it the same. I could, as Alderman Davis suggested.
Not keep it at 750.
No, same as the alderman.
So all aldermen and the mayor make the same.
Yeah. The other thing I would say about that is I checked with our counterparts at Boiling Springs, and the commissioners there get $250 a month. Our counterpart. So just so we know something about our surrounding communities.
So it sounds like that end of the table is bring the mayor up, whomever that may be at whatever point in time, to the same as the alderman. And this end of the table is up to $1,200
You break the tie. It's not Sarah, Dory, it's gotta be. I think the question is, how can he vote if it's a conflict?
So does that mean that I don't vote in this case?
No.
Okay.
But if it's a tie, does it, I gotta remember this now. It goes with the motion. Yeah.
That's what I think. A
Yeah,
tie
that's the
goes,
question.
is like a yes, I think.
Yeah, if it's a
Isn't
tie,
it?
it becomes a yes is the question. Huh?
I guess we'll come back to
Yeah,
this.
yeah, that's fine.
We'll come back to this one once we know if a tie is a yes.
I'm sorry, let's move on to the next topic. The
Oh,
jo-
this is a good one. The job study. We budgeted too much. Okay. So
We
you
like
can
this
take
one.
it down.
Let's do this one again.
Yeah, so, okay, so we're gonna get 20 grand back, okay. 3 new firefighters. Let's have a discussion first before we vote on this.
This, Bonnie, is this figure what it would cost in addition? I know that Chief Drew had factored in some other savings to keep those costs down. Is what, out of our general fund, it would cost to do that?
Sorry, Lance, I think you put in the actual salaries, right, onto this list?
It says net cost, so.
This is the net cost of the general fund after the other reductions to the volunteer stipends, because the volunteer shifts will be replaced with these. So this is the net cost after savings
Of all three.
of all three, in aggregate, in total.
So here's at the 30,000 foot level. The fire department budget is $160,000 plus over budget now. Over the top of the fire fees, which includes Caswell Beach and the rest of the fire district. So right now, under that, the city of Southport citizens will be paying that, and we have not asked Caswell Beach to kick in any money.
Yeah, that's on the response right here. They said no.
Okay, so then they don't want to pay any more money, and all of these 6 employees altogether brings it to approximately $550,000 per year, theoretically going on forever, plus COLAs and yada yada. So that would be paid for by the citizens of Southport, where we'll be subsidizing those people over there and the people in the fire district. And we have to make a fundamental decision here is, do we go back and figure out how the fire department stays within the fire fees? Because the city of Southport already pays for the EMTs, which we all, I think, almost unanimously voted on. And the fire district certainly gets that benefit because we're closer most of the time than the first Brunswick County paramedic. So we make all those runs. Yes, we do collect a fee if they make a transport, but they get the benefit of having a quick response based on the taxpayers of Southport. I don't know, at some point, we have to kind of figure out, are we the piggy bank for the rest of the area?
Just as an update and a couple things. One, if the 3 positions were put in for fire, there's a reduction in other line items because he wouldn't need all the overtime and all that. But does it equal to each other? No. But there is some reductions there. Last night, he emailed Lance and I and said that he has he's gotten in touch with a number of grant opportunities, and he's got 6 different possible grants, and so he feels that they're a pretty good chance of getting them all, and he would probably get another $100,000 for fire. But
Could
that's
that
nothing
go to personnel?
No, I understand. I know what you're saying. This would be one-time grants against recurring, but I at least wanted to tell you that because he did do the research.
So
And it would cover personnel.
for 1 year.
Those would be grants for adding personnel.
They're for different types of things. I can email it all
Yeah.
to you.
So theoretically, even if it was for a fixed thing, you take that money and you could shift it over to the personnel, so we could get there that way. But the problem is that it's a one-time deal, and you're not going to get those grants every year. And so we're at $550,000 that we have. I mean, this is and I love the fire department, but at some point, how do we do this?
So the way that the fire fees work, we have now capped out what we can charge for the fire fees. In order to increase the fire fees, I don't know if it's the fire department or City of Southport, I'm not sure how that works exactly, has to go back to the legislature to increase what they can charge for fire fees. I don't think this burden falls on the City of Southport. I don't think this falls on our citizens. I think this falls on the larger fire district and not just us.
One of the things that we hear is that we have to turn the fire trucks in after 20 years because there's a recommendation to do that. We may have to, in the future, we may have to take some hard looks at that may have to be elongated, out so that we're not turning the trucks in every 20 years because they cost so much money.
Well, I believe that one of our fire trucks was donated to the Navassa Fire Department, and the Navassa Fire Department is still happily using one of our former trucks. So I tend to agree that we might need to look at a longer life cycle than just the recommended for the trucks that we have.
And the other issue is we talked about there was a truck that cost $40,000 last year for repairs. One of the trucks that's going to be rotated out. It was an entire electrical system that was replaced. I'm assuming that electrical system is still good. So did that truck have to go this time? Unfortunately, we got a 2-day turnaround to do trucks. We had to vote in order to save the $220,000. We didn't have the time to go and ask all those extra questions about that. But at the fire district meeting, the issue of Caswell Beach shouldering some of this cost because they are the direct benefit of these new things was proffered. And I guess now we have the answer that they don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's not, they feel they gave $1 million, which we invested, and they feel they gave quite a lot of money.
And they did give us $900 to $1 million, and we spent it on salaries for the EMTs, because and this was nothing. The fire chief he knew this. The board knew this. Everybody knew this. We gave him the fire chief, $35,000 a year to run the EMTs, where it cost $225,000 to $250,000 a year to do it. And so he burned through the $1 million because that's what, not this board, but the former boards did. They gave him $35,000 to operate a $250,000 program. And he was ordered to do both, so he did it. And he and I have had that conversation multiple times to make sure that I'm factually correct.
So,
Alderman, I was just going to try to clarify something. So with your statement about the fire fee, it's your recommendation that we don't take on these additional costs this year? Okay. I can agree with that.
one of the things I think that's important that we're lumping in, the EMS conversation is separate from the fire. We're making different decisions. The EMS is solely Southport funded part of it.
It is,
So I
but
just want us, when we're talking about fire fees and utilizing fire fees, I want to make sure we're not trying to, because you're saying 560, lumping it all together. It's a set, that, I just want to make sure that.
You are correct.
I know. I just want us to
yeah.
think of it that way, because
And-
those are different conscious decisions.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying that our fire department doesn't deserve to have these 3 extra people. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have them. What I'm saying is it doesn't need to fall on the citizens of Southport. It needs to fall on the larger fire district.
I'd like us to be focusing only on the firefighter positions and then talk about the EMTs or EMS and how they are funded and what area they serve. And whether
You are correct.
We get to
That's a whole-
charge some
That's a whole
fees on
different
that.
set of circumstances that I would concur with you. We talk about the firefighters and the 160,000 in one bucket, on one go down the line, and we come back and talk about the EMTs on the next line.
And that budget, that $160,000 shortfall in that particular budget doesn't include the $189,344 that we're about to say yes or no to. So,
It's
and
an
that's
addition.
just that budget.
But I guess why, in my head, I'm thinking of them, putting them together, because it all comes out of the fire fee that we've maxed out on, and we have to pay, we, the citizens of Southport, have to pay for the benefit that the 2 fire districts, because Caswell actually has a separate fire district, and they just rolled their money from their fire district into ours. I don't know what their fire fee is, and I really don't know if they've maxed out on theirs. I don't know the answer. All I know is Southport is maxed out.
That's a great question.
I did request Chief Drew to come down. He's at the library because he's talking about the history of the fire department, so I think it'd be worth waiting to make sure you
Yeah,
got all the
and-
right answers.
And one of the things too, in this 160, I know we say that, and now I'm talking about the shortfall. We say, and I brought this up last time, the fire inspectors are for Southport. So they are solely, even though they've been using fire fees to pay for them, those are actually, they service only Southport. Because the county has inspectors for county. I'm not so, I think they do city limits. I'm not sure if they do ETJ.
No, the fire inspectors do the ETJ too.
Okay, so, but
'Cause
it's
that's a
our,
revenue
but it's our
loss.
ordinance, is what I'm saying. They're enforcing our ordinance is what they're doing. And fire safety. I don't know, I wasn't told that. I don't know the answer to that.
Should be here in like 5 minutes.
Let's move down the line, and we'll come back to this, if that's okay with everybody? All right.
Yeah, we could get some clarity, further clarity on EMS from him too.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
If you would like to go back to the previous item, a tie, the mayor does not have to do a tiebreaker if there's a conflict of interest, but the motion fails. So you're still kind of just in a tie. You have to keep discussing and come back with something else, is what I've found from 2 different sources.
So if he can't break the tie because of conflict of interest,
Let's move on to the next topic. We'll come back in a few minutes on that. So we are now at the one temporary finance position for backfill of $50,000.
I will let Lance address that.
Okay, I think I've described this to you before, but just to recap, I have a person, like a key person that's informed me that she's going to retire sometime between April 1st and May 1st of next year. That position is a required position according to the city charter, so it must be filled. And what I'm seeking here is the ability. I'm just looking for the flexibility to go out and hire somebody a few months ahead of time for knowledge transfer, for training, and then when the retirement happens, we'll be back to the same head count that we are now. It's not a permanent increase, but if we have to wait until the job's actually vacated to go to market to try to hire somebody, we're going to be without a key and required position for months and months. And it's also going to be at a time of the year when we're not only doing the budget and getting ready for year end, but we're also going to be implementing our new software beginning in May of next year. And so with the perfect storm brewing, what I'm asking for is the ability to go out and hire somebody. $50,000 is a placeholder number, it's an estimate. It most likely won't be that high. And that assumes 6 months of having 2 people in the same position, and I think that's highly unlikely. I think it'll probably be half of that if we're lucky, that we can even find somebody for a 2 or 3 month knowledge transfer. But that's what it is. It's not any sort of a staff increase. It's the flexibility to replace a key position ahead of time and not have a vacancy.
When we look at it, though, it looks like you're basically asking for $50,000 for 6 months, which would suggest then that this is somebody who would be paid $100,000 for a year, and I'm reasonably sure that the person who's leaving is not making that.
Well, but there's also health care and payroll taxes and 401k and those sort of costs that you have to factor in on top of just the net paychecks, the gross paycheck. So no, we would not. It does not assume that the person is earning a 6-figure salary.
Do you think it's likely that we would be able to find somebody to begin 3 months early instead of 6 months early?
I think we need to start at least 6 months ahead of time to have a chance of getting somebody at 3 months ahead of time. It just takes a very long time. The process itself takes a long time, and the time of the year is not ideal. To get somebody seated in January, you really kind of need to start in October or something, or September or something, because nobody's looking for jobs during the holiday season. And so if we could get somebody to come in on January 1 and have 3 months worth of transfer, that's the hope. The number I put in there is, what if lightning struck and we went out in say October 1st and we found somebody who was ready to come to work right away? I'd want some provision there for them, but I don't think it's likely. And what I'm really asking for is, I want to go out, try to fill this job around October 1 with the goal of January 1. And then that would give us about 3 months, or about half of that number. But I don't know what, if you got lucky, I don't want to have to say, no, we can't hire you now. Come back and talk to us in 3 months. So.
And Alderman Davis, I remind you that we've been looking for a planner since Hector was a pup here. And it's hard to get people to come in here, so you have to start X number of months beforehand to get somebody to come in here. We'll be lucky if we get somebody in here for 1 month overlap, but I would hope we would get more than that.
Basically, you're just looking for somebody to come in and backfill, somebody to transfer of knowledge, and once that's done, that goes away.
Yes, sir. There would only be 2 people in essentially the same position for, however many months we have the second person before the planned retirement, which is not later than May 1 of next year, sometime between April 1 and May 1 of next year. So, if we were to get somebody right after Christmas, somebody comes in and wants to start on January 1st, we'd have them for 3 months, and then that would be the end of that.
If you get somebody that's a quick study, it might be a little bit shorter. Then it might take a little bit longer. But again, it's an if-then.
Well, I don't have any real say on what the retirement date is. I can't say that, well, your replacements learned their job, now it's time for you to go. I mean, the retirement will be whenever it is, so.
I think it's an inexpensive way to hold on to institutional knowledge, is what I think.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Spencer.
No.
Alderman Lay.
Yes.
5-1. Let's move on to the next topic. Let's go back to the fire department since the chief is here. Chief has a kind of a recap, and if I get this wrong, anybody please raise their hand. We've kind of broken it into a couple of different pieces.
Okay.
The fire department budget. We have the $160,000+, shortfall. Then we have the 3 fireman positions that fall under the fire fee. So those 2 things fall under the fire fee. And the fact that Caswell Beach has said they will not pay any part of that, and we have no ability to talk to the rest of the Southport Fire Fee District on that issue. And the question that here is before us is, how do we, since these are going to be recurring costs year after year, is Southport willing at this time to front that cost exclusively by the taxpayers of Southport that will benefit Caswell Beach and the rest of the fire district? Do I have that pretty much down? Or?
Yeah, and I think one of the questions that you brought up was the Caswell Beach fire fee. How much is that?
It's about $325,000.
Okay. And have they maxed out?
Yes, it's maxed out too. I mean, all of our fire district is maxed out right now. The only way our fire fees go up, which they go up about 5% each year without us raising the fee, is by development. So we're getting anywhere from $35,000 to $75,000 added a year due to development. If Bonnie and Lance will allow me to claim the revenue that I've worked on for the last 3 weeks, I did send them $100,000 worth of revenue with some grants that I have been pretty assured that we can get that will offset the $160,000 deficit. So it would at least bring it down to $60,000 if they'll allow me to claim that revenue. But they've been so conservative and so tight on us with revenue this year, it's killing us, or killing me.
To make sure that I got it in my head correctly, the $160,000 is not a one-time shortfall. It's a recurring shortfall, is it not?
Well, when the fire department's paid off, we're going to have extra revenue. As we pay capital debt off, we have extra revenue that will be coming in. The county is in the process of looking at other ways to fund fire departments at this time, so we're looking for other funding sources.
But right now, all those things are over the horizon, might
Yes.
happen. I'm surprised that the county hasn't come to us to say, can you join us in this program? And
Well, they haven't made a decision yet. I mean, they're just they haven't even had a presentation yet. It's coming this month is what I've been told. In the fire department's defense, if I could get the city to pay me back for the 6 years that we fronted EMS, we'd be in good shape. Because when I became fire chief, we were running about a $500,000 nest egg every year. And once we took EMS over, and it was funded by the fire fee, it depleted all of our reserve money. We were running $500,000, $600,000 a year we had left over. And see, that's the thing about the fire fee, is it can't be spent for anything else. It has to be spent on the fire department. So when EMS was merged with us and we supported that for 6 years, it depleted all of our reserve money that we had.
And we talked about that before you came in here, because you and I have had that conversation multiple times. My question is that when we took over Caswell Beach and they had 900 million, whatever they had, was that considered fire fee money?
Yes.
How did we transfer that to the EMS?
Because EMS was a department of the fire department. That's how.
But I thought you couldn't use the fire fee money to fund
Well, I mean,
EMS.
because it was a division of the fire department, I mean, it was okay to use for that.
Okay.
Yeah,
That couldn't have been done the way it was done before, right? Because they were separate.
that's right.
So once they
That's
came,
right. Once they became under the umbrella of the fire department, then that changed things. And that's how it was funded under the fire fee. When EMS was first merged in 2015,
15 or 16, I can't remember the exact date right off, and I have no notes with me. When we took it over, it was with the understanding that the city was going to continue to fund it, but then when the next budget season came, that's not what happened. It got put into our budget, and it got funded with the fire fee. Instead of getting any revenue, we didn't get any revenue, and they immediately cut the revenue out from the county. See, the county was helping us at that point, and they stopped the revenue from the county.
They being the Board of Aldermen, or they being
No, the county commissioners.
Okay.
County commissioners, they cut $36,000 out of our budget that we were getting to fund EMS. They cut it out.
So, to quote a line from a movie from about 20, 25 years ago, talk to me like I'm 6 years old, so I can explain to taxpayers why we are paying, well, $199,739, in other words, $200,000 for EMS services that we provide to the whole fire district. That's how people will see it.
That's not the total of that budget. That's the additions that are being asked for.
So how do we justify that we pay all of this in addition to collecting the fire fee? Why doesn't the fire fee cover it? And I know the answer is fire fee is not enough.
Right.
But
Well,
why do we get stuck subsidizing the fire district?
Well, we offset the cost of EMS by the transport fees. So if you go out, let's say we go to a patient on Bethel Road, which is not in the city limits of Southport, and we pick up a patient, then we're allowed to charge them mileage from the station to their house. We charge them a transport fee when we take them to the hospital. If we take them to Wilmington, then we charge them mileage from their house to Wilmington. So we recoup some of that money back by responding in the county district by transport fees and charging mileage. So that helps fund it, and that puts the responsibility on the county citizen to help pay for the services that they're getting.
But from our conversation, because of a variety of factors that you had no control over, we were not able to show, because when we've talked about the hiring of the paramedics last year, they were supposed to be almost self-paid or almost self-paid. But we haven't been able to actually show that because you couldn't get them hired and you couldn't get them trained, and people left and yada, yada, all things that outside of your control. So we have no track record to show that they could be self-sustaining or thereby. Plus, if I understood you, about half the fees that you send bills out for don't get paid. People with insurance pay, people without insurance more or less don't get paid. So I'm not really sure, because I haven't seen the math yet. I was hoping this year we would see the math, but it didn't work out that way. And I realize these are EMTs, so their charging is not at the same rate as a paramedic. And we're still in that same quagmire that the citizens of Southport are paying these fees so the entire fire district can benefit for the quick response. Because please tell me if I'm wrong, often our paramedic or our EMT is going to get to the scene first. And if I'm on the floor grabbing my chest, I want you to get to the scene first. And then sometimes the county does the transport, even though we got there first, correct?
That does occur right now because we're still having an issue. We just got our DEA license last week. So we've got drugs on order to be able to do everything. That's the last piece of the puzzle for us to be able to operate fully without the county's response. I can say this, we don't have the data that we need to give a good comparison with the paramedics. However, since the paramedics have started, our transports have skyrocketed. When we used to transport 60, 70 patients a month, we're transporting 110, 120 patients a month now. So we are transporting more patients, so I understand that revenue for transport is going up. I just don't have the correct amount of data to give you a good comparison, a truthful comparison is what we're waiting on. But I can tell you, because I track the transports, the number of transports, and the number of transports have almost doubled since last year we've added the paramedics. Because we're allowed to transport almost every patient now because we have the higher level of EMTs to be able to take almost any patient.
So how long really would it take you to get the data to show us the cost-benefit analysis to be able to make an informed decision on that?
Well, now that we're getting the drugs ordered and we're going to be able to operate fully like we need to, I mean, we would need at least 12 months.
No, I'm talking about if you double the number of transports that you used to have, that's extra income, is it not?
Yes. Well, I mean, we're going to see even an increase in our transport fees this year.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
For this year,
yes.
Is it possible for you to generate that number?
Well, that's been the issue. Involved in all of this mix, we changed softwares at the fire department. Okay, so with that, we're under one software now because that was the big push with the city, is to get everything under one umbrella of software. Well, we've done that, but we've had some major glitches in collections and all of that because we have a third party that collects the money for us. So with the change in software, that's why we're running behind, or I would have some numbers for you.
Chief Drew, I have kind of a different question. How many firefighters do we have on each shift right now? Volunteer and full-time?
4.
Okay. And
Well,
that's between both stations?
Yes, we have 2 at headquarters and 2 at Caswell, if everyone is there. Day before yesterday, we had 2 call in. We had one at headquarters and we had 1 at Caswell.
To explain your shifts again.
Yes.
That's important. They're not all at the same time, right?
No. We have administrative staff that works Monday through Friday, like myself, Chief Treadway, the fire marshals, things like that. But our captains and our firefighters work 24-hour shifts. I work an 8-hour shift. They work 24-hour shifts. So we have an A, B, C shift. And so on A shift, we have 3 full-time. We have a captain, 2 full-time, and then we supplement it by a volunteer. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to hire 3 firefighters to stop us from having to sign that volunteer up. I have $109,500 in a line in the budget for that volunteer sign-up. If we get the 3 full-time firemen, I will deplete that completely and put that toward the full-time status. That will not cover all of the expense, though, in this budget. And that's what I've been trying to do. I've been trying to come up with grant ideas and things. So we've gotten another $100,000 in revenue. That brings us down to a $60,000 shortfall. And I'm still in the process of trying to make that up. This is the first year since I've been the fire chief that we've had a deficit in the fire budget. We've always balanced our budget on our fees, and this is the first year that this has happened. We're working very diligently and very hard to meet the need to stop that deficit, but it's just becoming increasingly challenging. And it's the volunteers, it's a national crisis. People are just not volunteering like they used to. We have a good roster of volunteers, but the majority of our volunteers, they work. So they may offer, I mean, your good friend, Davey Miller, he works. And you know, he comes down and he'll pull a shift sometimes from 6 o'clock in the evening till 6 o'clock the next morning to get his time in. But we're not having the response of people to turn out to sign up for these shifts when we need them. It all depends on their work schedule.
We've got a lot of people that donate a lot of time, and
Yes,
I'm absolutely proud of my
We do,
buddy David
we
Miller.
do. And then we have volunteers, you know, we stress, we have a place for everybody. Everybody that is a volunteer cannot go in a burning building. We have volunteers that just help us cook in the kitchen when we have special functions. You know, so everybody can't sign up in that slot. Right now, we have about 5 active people that are signing up for all of these slots that we have open. So we're working 5 people. I can name them for you, the 5 people that are signing up constantly in those slots. So it's becoming increasingly challenging to fill those slots with those 5 people.
Are we going to give one of those 5 the full-time job?
I'm sure that some of those 5 will apply. We probably have 2 that would not apply, that are older, that would not want to apply. But some of those people will apply, I'm sure, if the positions are approved.
You know, one of the problems we have as a city gray, shall we say, our pool of candidates becomes smaller because you don't have the people that can handle the physical intensity of what that job requires. Now, you're not supposed to ask the old question, but in this case, it's fact. This is a young person's job, and that's just it. And as we continue to age, the people that we need for the jobs just aren't there. I don't know how you get them to continue doing it.
Well, and Alderman Lay, we have set up over the last 3 years, we have set up a program where we do agility testing on all of our full-time staff and our volunteers. We will not let them sign up in that slot to provide interior fire protection unless they pass that agility test, because we don't want to get somebody that can't go in to rescue Grandma Smith that's trapped in her bedroom. We've got to have somebody that is willing to be able to go in there and get her out of the building if the fire occurs. So that's another thing. So we're just starting in the month of June is when we do our agility testing. They have to run. They have to climb 4 flights of stairs with full turnout gear on and all the equipment. And so we're doing those things that we need to do to make sure that we have good people on the job, but we're just short-staffed. This is not a want. This is a need.
Okay, I'm not going to sign. I'm not going to sign up after that description.
Chief Drew, one of the things we were talking about before you got here is about your fire inspectors and the fact that they are solely dedicated
Yes.
to Southport and the ETJ.
Yes.
And I think you have a full-time one, and then you have someone who's half that and half something else.
That is
so
correct.
the value, as far as that cost in the budget, that would far exceed the $60,000 in shortfall.
Yes, yes.
Do you have a ballpark of what maybe, including benefits and everything, that could be? Just because you don't have to have it now.
Right.
But I think that's part of this conversation is that we've been having that service
Yes.
that the fire fees have been paying for.
Yes.
So, and that is exclusive to us and our needs.
Yes, fire inspections are a requirement by the North Carolina State Fire Code. So we have to do fire inspections in the city and our ETJ. Now, that's a caveat. If we lose the ETJ, we're going to lose some revenue there with the fire inspections because we're currently doing those inspections in the ETJ. I estimate about 25% reduction is what I'm looking at. That's just a guesstimate. But yes, what Alderman Mosteller is saying is true, that our Fire Marshal's Division is solely for the city. We don't do that at Caswell. We don't do that in the Yopon Rural District. So that is solely city purposes altogether. Going back
Who does Caswell, fire marshal-wise?
I don't know if they have a contract with the county or if they have their own. I know they did have their own building inspector, and he may do it. Going back to the conversation, because I was listening in about the fire engine, we did not give Navassa Fire Department a truck. We gave Civitan Fire Department a truck, which is a rural department. We gave them a 35-year-old truck, and Alderman Kelly brought that up. We gave them a truck from Yopon Beach Fire Department. We did not give them a Southport truck. It was equipment that was donated to us when we took over Yopon. It was a 35-year-old truck that could not pass a pump test. You couldn't pump water with it, and Navassa took it, and they're using it for a rescue truck to carry jaws of life, not fight fire with. So I just want to make sure that that accurate information is out there. It's not like we have so much equipment that we're able to just give stuff away to people. That's not factual.
So going forward, I have no idea how to answer my question. But if you were to get what you're asking for, it's $550,000 that the taxpayers would have to pay in addition to the fee that they pay for the fire district, that Caswell Beach and the rest of them don't pay.
I think that's the total of the 3 firemen and the 3 EMS people together.
Correct, plus the 160, plus the 160.
Plus the shortfall.
Yeah, that's a recurring cost, and I understand you put into grants, but grants are one-time shot. And we're not going to get them every year. They're not going to fund us that way. At least I don't think so. I don't know how we get out of the mess that is only going to get worse, because I see no coordinated, this is not against you. I see no coordinated effort by the fire departments, because we can't be alone in this world. If the fire fees do not pay for what we need in Southport, they can't be paying for what other people need in other places of similar size. How do the other 18 municipalities do this? Do they have higher rates than we do? I mean, do they have I'm going to use the term surcharge, like we would have to have for our people? How do we get out of this mess?
Well, I mean, I can tell you from observation and reading the newspaper and hearing chiefs talk at the chiefs meetings, I know how Leland operates. I mean, they operate from their ad valorem taxes. They get their fire fees are like $4 or $5 million, and then they are supplemented by the town through ad valorem taxes. Same thing with Oak Island. So I mean, that's just the observation for those municipalities. Some of these fire departments in Brunswick County are not even municipal fire departments. There's only 5. Out of 22 fire departments, there's only 5 fire departments that are owned by municipalities. The rest of them are private organizations.
Oak Island and Leland are their own fire district, are they not?
Yes,
So when they take the valorem taxes, it's for them. Here, we would be taking valorem taxes for Caswell Beach and the fire district.
Well, not Leland. Leland has a large rural district as well as what we do. Now, Oak Island is a special animal by itself, because Oak Island, they just serve their city limits. That is it. They do not have a rural district outside of their city.
Out of curiosity, what are the other 5? What are the 5?
There's Leland, Southport, Oak Island, Ocean Isle Beach, and Sunset Beach are the 5 municipal departments in the county. Every other department is a private-owned organization that signs a contract with the municipality.
Would you say the others succumb to the result of growth and all that? That there were some that were public that had to go private, basically?
That is true, and vice versa, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Robert, do you want to ask the questions about the paramedics? Do you have any further questions on that? Or I should say EMTs.
Don't we have some unresolved questions so perhaps these are 2 things that we come back to at our next workshop? You ask a lot of questions in particular.
Yes, the manager reminds me of that daily. So how we do that is at the pleasure of the board. So we could postpone this decision for another day and make sure that the chief is not going to be in town in case we needed to call him, or we can try to resolve it today. So let's do a real quick one. Alderman Mosteller, do you feel comfortable going forward today, or would you like some more time?
Well, I think I had a question that I asked about the fire inspectors and the costs of that, and what are the real costs, so we can fully understand what we ought to be paying for as well. I think that and he's also brought something new to us about $100,000 worth of grants for this year. So I think we've got some new information. I'd rather wait till Friday. We're meeting on Friday.
Alderman Carroll? Alderman Davis?
Yeah, I'd like to wait and absorb new information.
Alderman Kelly?
I'm not here on Friday, but I will do my best to try and call in at least for a little while.
Alderman Spencer?
I'll be here Friday.
Alderman Lay?
I agree.
All right, let's postpone this decision until Friday, okay?
Thank you.
Sorry.
One thing, I lost it and then I remembered it. The quality of your fire department saves us on our insurance rates, right?
Yes, sir, that is correct. We do have a very low Class 3 ISO rating, and it does save commercial properties and residential properties on your insurance. We
Is
do get-
anybody doing any better than you, Chief?
Well, we do have a couple of fire departments in the county that have a 2 now.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're pushing for a 2 when we have our reinspection in the next year or two. But they've recently, Sunset Beach has a 2, Leland's just gotten a 2, and I was told today that Charlotte Fire Department has a 2.
There is a financial incentive to support our fire department with our insurance payments.
Yes, that is
So
correct.
the cost-benefit analysis, the term that I throw out all the time, is how much am I going to save versus how much is it going to cost me to get there?
Right. And I always tell folks this when I'm talking about fire fees. You know, I have a 3,000 square foot house. I live on Park Avenue, and I pay one of the largest fire fees in the city, residentially wise. I pay $600 a year for fire service. That equates to $1.64 a cent. $1.64 a day is what I pay for fire service. I think that's a pretty good deal for what you can buy. Well, I don't even know if you can buy a candy bar for that now, for $1.64. Of course, now if you have to add the other money, that's going to increase that a little bit.
I guess I'm going to be asking the manager, if we were to take the $550,000 and have to add that to the average household, so we can make an argument if the board was to go in that direction, is there a way to do that math? And can we get that by Friday? All right.
And one more thing, Mayor. Everybody fusses about fire until they need them. When your house is on fire or your spouse is having a heart attack, you're glad to see us show up in 2 minutes or less.
I don't know anybody in this town that fusses about the fire department. The fire department is an integral part of this town, and the department under your leadership has events every week, it seems like, and they're integral part of this whole thing. So I don't know that you have a bad rap from anyone.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
We're looking,
we at
what
lunch?
is your grandson's name? Yes,
Charles Lincoln.
Charles Lincoln. We're
Yes.
looking forward to him being one of our future
Yes.
fire chiefs.
That would be 5th generation.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, if I can just go back to the, where am I? Temporary finance position for the backfill. We just became aware that that retirement is not 100% sure. So what I would recommend that you do is that take it out If it ends up it's a go, I told Lance he could, he would come back to you and ask for your support at that time, but at least for now, it gets it out of the budget. So that's my recommendation.
Alderman Marcel, are you good with that? Alderman Carroll, Alderman Davis?
You mean cut $50,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
I'm in favor.
No, you're not
You're not
really
cutting it,
cutting it
no.
because it was never in the budget to start with, so.
Alderman Kelly,
I'm good.
Alderman Spencer,
Thank you.
Alderman Lay.
Move along with it, yes.
Thank you. Now, we're going to take a break for lunch, so we'll be returning in a little while. I'd like to bring the meeting back into order. We have an administrative thing we have to check on. You may have read, or may not have read, an email that went out asking if Friday's meeting could start at 8:30 in the morning. And I want to go down the list. Is everybody good with that? Anybody not good with that? I know that you're not there, but, all right, it'll be 8:30 so you can post it. Thank you very much. Yep. So the next topic is the debt service budget is high. I don't understand that sentence.
Lance, could you explain for us?
The only debt service we're currently making is on the, excuse me, the fire department debt. And when you go back and look at the debt schedules and compare it to what was in the budget was just slightly high. So we adjusted it back down about $16,000.
So what you're telling me is we have $16,000 more in the budget than we thought we had?
Correct.
Okay. And the fire trucks fee, that budget part of it won't kick in until next fiscal year?
The new trucks will not,
Okay.
there will be no debt on them in the year that we're budgeting for right now.
The next topic, why don't you just wait for a second. Retire fire department using ARPA funds. And that looks like another positive 216,000?
So that was an idea that was floated the last time we talked about this, and right, it's. I think Alderman Carroll suggested it. Alderman Kelly disagreed with it. When you look at what is actually, we're paying such low interest rates that we make more money on that than keeping that money in the bank. We're going to make more interest on it than we're going to save by retiring the debt early. So we should keep the money in the bank and make some extra. We're making close to 5%, and I think the highest interest rate we got is 2.85 off the top of my head without looking at it there. So yeah.
So in simple terms, the $216,000 is the ARPA money?
In simple terms, if we were to use the ARPA money to pay off some of our debt, we would save debt service. We would not make those payments, those annual payments.
And because we're going to keep the money in the bank, we would make more than that?
Correct. We won't make more than $285,000. We'll have the principal, but we'll make more on the principal than the interest will cost us on the debt that we have.
Okay, does anybody disagree with that? Okay. Moving on to the next one. Street budget has one too many employees.
I'll just stay here for that. So the streets budget, when you took away the two people that were solely dedicated to water, they had 6 people remaining. And I thought, and so one of those 6 is going to we believe go to the county. I thought Tom was going to backfill for that job, and he told me later he's not. And that was when we were over at Indian Trail Meeting Hall. There was some conversation between the board and Tom about how many people he had, and that the reason he was confused is because I had misinterpreted it. I had added that 6th person back to his budget. He tells me he doesn't need that 6th person. So this is removing the 6th person from the budgeted numbers. It has no real impact on what his plans were. It's just that the budget had a person in it that Tom had no intention of backfilling.
But in the budget book, that salary is in that book as a debit for us right now, and that is not there? Is that what you're telling me?
The budget book has the dollars for 6 streets people in it.
So it's one too many.
And it's one too many. So if I take, that's the dollars for the one person that is in there that's too much.
The part that I'm still a little fuzzy on is that you had sewer people and you had water people. And I thought I heard somewhere along the line that 3 employees were hoping to go to the county.
That's true.
Is that still the game plan?
Correct. There were 8 people altogether. The streets people are really streets and sewer, right? And there were 2 of them that were specific, that are very specific. Their qualifications, their license or whatever they have are specific to water operations, and so those two was never in question that they would not be around, but one additional person is gone, so he's going to go from 8 to 5 altogether.
So altogether, we would not have the expense of 3 employees,
Correct.
and the total value of that is 230 million, 230,000 maybe, something like that?
That's probably about right, yes, sir.
Okay. And so we had that much more money than last year? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. The Archive of Social Increase.
Cheyenne, you're on.
Good afternoon, everybody. I almost said morning. So the short answer or the short description is that about 2 weeks ago, I got an email from Archive Social that said that they were increasing their prices, which would add $1,200 to what we currently pay. They're doing that across the board for all accounts. Not individual accounts, but like City of Southport is one account. They're doing that for all accounts. Due to inflation, employee wages, services, things like that. So it would be an additional $1,200 to the number that's already in your budget book. I think it's around $7,300. Okay. As of right now, because it was so close to the budget time whenever they told us about the increase, we don't have enough time to look for other solutions right now, but that is something that I will begin looking at as soon as I can, or like moving forward for this next 25-26 fiscal year. But right now, that is not something we can forego.
And this is for the digitalization of our records, is that what we're talking about?
Oh, no, sir. So Archive Social is how we keep a record of all of our online presence. So it is attached to our social media and digital media accounts. And so all of the posts, messages, comments, shares, everything that we as a city do online, it tracks that and keeps it for FOIA compliance and making sure that if something like, let's say Facebook had a downtime and all of a sudden it deleted all of our posts from the last week posting comments, Archive Social still has all of those in their backlog. So if somebody came and put a information request in and said, I want to see what you posted this past Monday at 3 p.m. and all of the comments associated with it, if something happened and we couldn't go and catch that, we can go and get it from our digital backlog.
Since this is a positive thing that we'd have to vote on, Alderman Mosteller?
Yeah, because it's already accounted, 6,100's already accounted for in the proposed budget, so this is just about the 1,200. I'm good, it is what it is.
Well, okay, Alderman Davis.
We're only adding 1,200 for the year.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
And actually, we don't have a choice, so.
Alderman Kelly. I'm sorry? We have to do it. Yes, Alderman Spencer.
Is this required by statute that we keep records?
Archive Social itself is not, that system is not required, but some sort of digital archiving solution is required. So the short answer is yes, but I'm looking more into that for the future.
Thank you.
Alderman Lay. Okay, we've exhausted that one. Thank you, ma'am.
You're very welcome.
River Miss electrical payment. There's no dollar amount here.
No, there isn't. Alderman Mosteller had brought up whether it should be in Public Works or in the electricity account. I did check with the School of Government, and they said if you have a sufficient fund balance, then you could move it back and forth. So it's up to you guys where you want it. Doesn't matter. But there's no dollar amount difference.
Is there a preference from this board into the how we do that, or we just want to leave it to staff to do it?
What I would say about it is we're doing this because they pay ad valorem taxes. So I think it ought to be in the general fund myself, but, you know, so that it accounts for, it's out of the general fund
These,
rather than the electric
As opposed to the electrical fund.
fund, which is a membership, theoretically a membership-driven participant fund.
Okay. Alderman Carroll?
I'd like to know whether Lance has a preference. Does everybody here understand what this thing is about?
not completely.
As I understand it, this came up with the ad hoc committee for street lights and outdoor lighting. It turns out that when, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, when River Mist was developed, the developer made a deal with Brunswick Electric and to provide all of the street lights. And so the people at River Mist have to pay their bill for street lights to Brunswick Electric, and yet they're also paying taxes, property taxes. So basically, they're paying twice for the same thing. And since they are property tax payers, we're eliminating the payment to us because they are paying Brunswick Electric.
So one of the, and let me just tag on to her information. So the city allowed Brunswick Electric to provide that, is what happened, that we gave up our right to do that. Then these are public streets, however. We're responsible for these public streets. And so what we're actually doing is, just like we would do for any other street in Southport, we provide, it's $11.25 per light, and the same amount we calculate for anywhere else in town. And they actually pay quite a bit more per light to Brunswick Electric, but we're reimbursing them the same as we would for any other street light on our street, on any of our streets. So that's where the $11.25 per light. We're not giving them the total amount because it's more than twice that for Brunswick Electric's conversation. But so that's why.
Street lights, but not their facilities, their pool or anything of that nature. Just
No,
street
this
lights.
is just because we provide street lights here, so, and
Makes
they're
sense.
citizens, so.
Okay, thank you for the explanation.
I think it's $11,000. I'm just looking at page 46 of the budget book.
Lance, do you care where it is located?
All the other street lights are paid for in the electric fund, which is where all the revenue goes. But for $11,000, I don't have, my preference would be to keep it in the electric fund where all the other street lights are, but, you know, so.
Okay, so then we're going to start over again. Keep an electrical fund. Alderman Carroll. Yes. Alderman Kelly.
I'm fine with that.
Alderman Spencer?
Yes.
Alderman Lay?
Yes.
Good. Next item.
Mr. Mayor, can we go back to the mayor's salary?
We can.
Where are we going?
Back to the mayor's
Mayor's
salary.
salary, and I'm
So-
going to allow Mayor Pro Tem to handle that part of it.
So we now have information from Dory that a tie is a negative, so I wanted to go back and rediscuss this and see if we can come to a consensus. Any discussion on that?
Can we do 1,100 and compromise?
Alderman Lay, do you have?
I can live with that.
Alderman Spencer. Alderman Davis?
I'd go with only 1,000, the same as all aldermen.
I agree with that. And just to be clear, we're talking 1,000 plus the FICA, just like ours, so, okay.
Alderman Mostak?
Yeah, well, I would reduce all of ours, so I would stay with the same amount as us.
Okay, so we've got 3 for 1,000, we've got 2 for 1,100.
You've got 4 for 1,000. Let's go with it.
Okay, then I think we're in consensus for 1,000 for the mayor's.
Rich, I do appreciate you, though.
All right, we're going to move on. If you would turn to page 76 of your book, which is the proposed capital list for 2024-25. Page 76 of 79, all the way in the back. Last page, last tab. All right, so the list we were just working from so the list that we were working from, every time we said yes, it added to the budget. From the list that we're going to working from now, every time we say no, it reduces the budget. So, the first one is design of the city pier. And I'm going to ask the manager to tell us exactly what does that mean.
When we were doing work on the city pier, we had divers go underneath and found that there is some problems with the actual, what do you call it? The bracings, thank you, Dory, that need to be fixed. So 15,000 is set aside so that we can get the design done for the actual work, so we can come up with a final amount to do the work.
That is just design.
Correct.
Apparently our pier is different from all the other piers, and you just can't pull it off the shelf and say, this is what I need for a brace. But I suspect that actually is what happens. But the bill for this is 15,000. So, Alderman Mosteller?
Yeah, I don't think we have an option not to repair the braces on the pier.
Alderman Carroll?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Reluctantly, yes.
Alderman Kelly?
I'm with Alderman Davis, reluctantly yes.
Alderman Spencer?
Yes.
Alderman Lay?
Gotta do it, yes.
Okay. The next one is dredging the grant share. I am unclear as to that figure, because the last time I knew, our part of the grant is $712,000. So what is this money for?
This is just for the initial part for next year. So that's the grant share that we need for next year. Are you going to need more money to actually do the dredging? Absolutely, you're going to need that amount. But for next year, all you would need is $15,625 to get this project up and running, but not any more than that next year. That's our share, so the state would pay for the other amount. We should know any day now whether we're going to get it or not.
Okay, so as we all keep these things in mind, next year is going to be quite challenging. Alderman Mosteller on the 15,000?
Yeah, I'm
Alderman
certainly in favor.
Carroll?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Again, reluctantly, but yeah.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Spencer?
Yes.
Alderman Lay?
Yes.
The next one is the design of the city dock boat slips. $18,000 to tell me that I need to put pilings so many feet out and so many feet apart.
You can wait on this project if you want. I mean, that's up to
I
you
mean,
guys.
this is for the, we're not even knocking a piling into the ground. But it's at the desire of the board whether we go forward with this, is this needed this year?
I have a question about it. Will this, with the design of the boat slips, are we looking at transient dockage where we have a revenue generator for the city?
That will be presented to you on Friday with the rate committee. Yes, there is a suggestion for that amount.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to hold this off until we get done with that first part to see if we're gonna actually go through with how we're gonna do the money exchange for transient boating when we don't have a dock master, and how that is all gonna work?
I think it makes sense to understand how we're going to potentially earn money from this spend that we're looking at.
Does this have anything to do with, are we on any kind of time constraint or anything as far as CAMA is for putting them back? I know we can't remove any pilings until we are prepared and have an approved project.
No, and I mean, I think the bigger thing here is they were hoping to put, I don't know if we have 1 or 2 city boats we wanted to put in there. So, but the transient one, I mean, we can do it 5 years from now.
Any other discussion?
The use of the dock is important for us to decide which way we're going to go, because there were discussion about emergency service vehicles and things of that nature using that.
Also talk about having a transient.
Yes, ma'am. And so one way or another, we've got to set our claim and sail in that direction. If it is fire, yeah, that's right. I know with the fire district and all that is wore out with their fees, but if it's emergency service dock, will we ever be able to get emergency services to help us pay? You know what I mean? So probably not.
Where do the emergency services boats dock now?
I think they're stored in the firehouse, I believe. I know I've seen one at the Caswell area, but I think that there are other ones in the firehouse.
Unfortunately, like the Bald Head Fire, they had a lot of problems getting firefighters over there, and that dock would be our first go-to get people.
And does Bald Head want to pay for it?
Yeah, it's like we're the rich uncle to everybody, but that's just,
Officer Alderman Mosteller?
I'm in favor of this because I think long-term, we want to do this, and we've got a certain amount. My understanding would be that from a permitting standpoint, we've probably got, and maybe we could get this. I just want to make sure we don't outlive our ability to permit it.
we are lucky to have it. A lot of hard work. I expect you as well. A lot of hard work to get it back. We were lucky to even build it back. So we need to follow through now that we've got the opportunity. I'm with you.
Alderman Davis?
No for now, and I'd like to add that the concept of having transient slips is a good concept, but in execution, it sure did not work well in the past and was a real headache for collection, monitoring, supervising, rules, how long is a transient, how do you enforce it? I mean, it just opens a can of worms. So for this year, no, this is, from my way of thinking, something we don't absolutely need, would be nice to have, but not now.
I don't think this is going to change anybody's vote, but my understanding is where we're going to be dredging is also a designated anchorage. So you can just go and just drop your anchor and park your boat in the middle of the thing, because I talked to Royce about that, because I thought it might impact his decision to want to support the dredging, because he may not be able to get out of his slip because there's a boat parked in front of it. And he said, go forward with the dredging. So, but it is an anchorage. Alderman Kelly?
Then I'm a no.
Alderman Spencer, do you know what I meant?
Yes, I do, and you're a mariner. What is an overnight place, what can you get for something like that as an overnight stay for a boat?
Well, it all depends on what services you have. So there's no services there. There's no electricity, there's no water, and there's no pump out. So you get nothing. So you get by the foot. I don't know what the going rate is now. It's been so long since I've had to do it. I don't know what the going rate is, but you pay by the foot based on the services that you can provide.
It's Mark, you're around $75 to $95 per night for a 30-foot boat.
Okay.
With electricity and water?
No.
I'd like to repeat my mantra of we should not compete with private business. There are 2 marinas in our, well, 3 if you count Deep Point, within our city limits that.
Mary has some information she wants to add.
The city dock park is part of our FEMA program as well. We have reimbursements ready, but we have to get an extension if we're not going to do it this year. We've already had several extensions. FEMA was backed up and didn't approve everything in a very timely manner. So now we finally have that funding approved, but we will have to get an extension if we're not going to move forward this year, if they'll allow us.
With just the slips or the dredging?
Just the slips.
So we have FEMA money to redo the slips. This is our portion of it?
That's correct.
Just so everybody understands what we're doing here, do we have any idea how much money FEMA gave us to put slips back in?
I can get that exact number for you, but like I said, we've had several extensions for the project, and it's a reimbursement program, so we expend it first, and then we get reimbursed from FEMA.
So 100% reimbursement, you think?
I believe so, except for maybe the design portion.
Great, great.
Oh, wait, to clarify, this is what we pay for which we would not get reimbursed. The rest of the cost would be FEMA, and FEMA's already approved it, is that right?
That's
So we're
correct.
on the hook for $18,000.
Mayor Alt, I think you need to go back through us at this point with that additional information.
Okay, so since this is all new material. You're still a yes. Robert? I am a yes now. Alderman Davis?
Still no.
Alderman Kelly?
I'm a yes now.
Alderman Spencer?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Lay?
I'm a yes now.
5 to 1, we move forward. So they're going to give us $400,000 to put the pilings in. Okay. Hopefully that includes the cleats to tie the boat off on. The land acquisition for the parks.
This is a part of the master plan that the board approved, and this would be a starting fund that we would set aside. I mean, this isn't going to buy anything specific, but at least start to set aside funds towards land acquisition for new parks.
So this would be the equivalent of a half-a-cent tax. Right?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, do you want to have future parks or you don't?
Is this specifically pointed toward buying the property that would connect Low White Park to Taylor Field to Kingsley?
Well, you could. I mean, you know, it's general, but it was in the master plan to start doing this, or you're going to run out of land. So, I mean, you could use it. It's nothing specific. It's just to set aside funds.
Any other questions? Alderman Mosteller.
I'm all about acquiring land adjacent because there's only so much land, and then when it's gone, it's gone. And if we're not, I don't know, my question, I guess, would be a Lance question. If this isn't in the budget, then can we still, if something, but then we're not really pursuing anything. I don't know if it should just reside in the fund and.
I think
be
if your
dedicated.
question is, if something comes down the line that you guys are interested in, then you'd have to take it out of, general fund, or, there's a contingency line too.
So we could do it that way
You
just as
could, but
well.
the intent of the master plan was to start setting money aside to build a pot of money to buy a big parcel somewhere.
So the question is this, that we keep adding.
Yeah, I'm for, I guess, keeping it in the general fund so we collect interest on it and that sort of thing, and know that we're going to do it in the future.
That's a no.
That's a no.
Yeah, I guess so.
Alderman Davis.
A no, on the basis of, yeah, I want it. Do I need it? No.
Alderman Kelly.
No.
Alderman Spencer.
Yes.
Alderman Lay.
No.
Okay. Madam Clerk, you're getting the tally of who's doing what. Thank you.
We on number 5, tennis court
We're on
resurfacing?
tennis court resurfacing, $160,000. So, we've had this discussion, but is there any more discussion right now? Alderman Mosteller. No. Alderman Carroll. Alderman Davis.
No, not this year.
Alderman Kelly.
No.
Alderman Spencer. No. Alderman Lay.
No.
All right, unanimous. City Hall renovation and design, $300,000.
This was a price I received from the architect who looked at the city hall and the new police station, but this would be a total revamp of the city hall as he presented to the board. I mean, if you don't want to do it, then, I'd have to come up with a plan B of how to do something with City Hall, but we wouldn't go to the extent of, bringing out the wall and, all of that.
Maybe I just misunderstood. My understanding of this $300,000 figure was for design only and no 2x4s, nothing, just
That's
a design. Okay. Alderman Mosteller? Alderman Davis?
No.
Alderman Kelly?
No.
Alderman Spencer?
No.
Alderman Lay?
No.
Unanimous. City building repairs, that's for all the buildings. Under the high caps, this is all the buildings except for the old City Hall, is that correct?
That is correct, and these are the things that need to be done immediately. There's probably a list a mile long of things that have to get done to these buildings, but this is to take care of the ones that are really, have got to be taken care of sooner rather than later.
Does that include the art gallery at Franklin Square Park?
I believe there were a couple items in there. I'd have to check and see if they were major or minor. Because Tom Stanley's also putting money in for the more minor things that we can do in-house.
I was looking through the list on this, and it includes such things as resurfacing the driveway at the old J.C.'s building. There's some things that are certainly necessary, like unsafe railings and so on, but do we have to resurface that driveway now?
No, I'm sorry. That was the list I sent you. You had just asked for the park buildings. This is for all the buildings, so I can get you a list of what that encompasses, but that's not the park buildings. The park building improvements are number 9. This is just all the other city buildings.
When you say the parks building, they're the ones that are under the umbrella of the Parks Department.
Correct.
Which
and
includes
I
old
sent you the
J.C.'s building.
sheets
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
high
I got
caps,
it.
but that's not what you're talking about now. You're just talking about city buildings.
So, because of during the budget process, we do get a lot of paperwork. Is it possible to kick this to Friday and we get a list of what we're talking about for the 200,000?
If you want, sure.
Okay. So, and in the interim, we would get the specifics of what the $200,000 for. Alderman Kelly? Alderman Spencer?
I'll be here on Friday.
Alderman Lay? All right. Next one down is the Old City Hall. Environmental issues, which is 700,000.
That's the estimate we have right now from High Caps. You gave them the 8,500, so that may change before you adopt the budget, because I believe, as he mentioned, that the bids right now for abatement issues are actually pretty good, because companies aren't busy, but I won't have that. Hopefully I'll have it before you adopt the budget.
Any other comments before we vote?
Can we just put some new windows and new HVAC in there to hold it for a little while instead of spending 700,000?
That's a policy decision. That's a policy decision.
We haven't made our final decision, or actually, we haven't reached a decision at this part about what we're going to do with that building. So I would be inclined to wait until, well, we're certainly going to get the study from High Caps that we approved. And then we look at what's the minimum we can do until we know what's going to happen to the building and to what extent we could pay for these kinds of things if we keep the building.
I would just offer for consideration the fact that this will take a year to do. If we voted on it today, it would take a year to do. And whatever we do with that building, somebody would have to pony up the money to pay us back. If we gave it to a third party to do something, they would have to pay us $700,000 back. If we keep the building, we're just a year in advance of actually doing something. I can't see the $700,000 going to waste, because no matter what option we pick, the building has to be, even to try to sell it, and if we tried to sell it, we'd probably all be strung up. But you'd have to do that just to make it sellable. So all the options that are out there all require this building to be something to be done to remediate it. The inside walls will be stripped. The ceiling, parts of the ceiling will come down with this asphalt, well, there's asbestos, and encapsulated. And the AC system would go in, and as I spoke before, it would probably be those big pipes with the holes in it, so you're not doing this kind of AC stuff, because you don't have to worry about what the room's gonna look like. And so I don't know what the downside obviously is a budget issue, but the budget next year is not gonna get any better. Because we got $700,000 for dredging, we got the shortfall of the 1.2 million, we have a potential fire department thing. The budget's never gonna get better than it is today, as short as it is today. That's just something to think about.
If we don't do something on this building very quickly, it's just gonna collapse on us, and there's gonna a lot of people saying a lot of ugly things about us. So we've got to do something, and we gotta do it soon.
And I agree with you, Alderman Layett, but I think that the 700,000 is excessive for us right now. That's why my suggestion is look at doing the HVAC with the tubes that you're talking about running through and new windows to hold the building where it is and give us a little bit more time.
That's a good start.
I don't think 1 year is going to affect that building as negatively as we are suggesting.
As fast as mold grows, if we don't do something now, it's going to look like the end times. And
It doesn't look that different today than it did just a few years ago when I went in it, when I personally walked through that building.
can kicking time? Is that where we are?
No, sir.
Well, I think I can embrace Alderman Kelly. I think you're talking about temporary windows, obviously. Some kind of temporary sealed up windows,
Yeah, just
just
something
to make sure it's sealed.
But we don't want to get on our dilapidated building list where our own.
No, I hear you.
Our code
Or
enforcement guys are trying to get us to
minimum
take it
housing,
down.
yeah. But I could embrace a much reduced to buy us time, and so I could embrace doing that for sure.
Because regardless, that will need to happen at some point.
The temporary AC, that'd probably be good to go ahead and have that first anyway for tear out and whatever, right? And then the windows, whatever, sealing up the windows.
I'd like to hear from Tom Stanley about what's possible there, or from high caps. I don't know that we're not throwing good money after bad if we do it that way.
High Caps makes money when we spend money, so they're going to look forward to us doing the $700,000 deal.
It's not Tom Stanley who's going to give you that information. It's going to be High Caps, and I don't think I can get an answer by Friday.
Can we hold off until a later meeting?
One other meeting after Friday, that's June 6th, but we are getting very close to when you've got to make final decisions by June 6th.
So the answer to your question is yes, we could hold off to June 6th, but that's a drop dead date.
Understood. I hate to delay it that much, but $700,000, that's a lot. So
Lance just mentioned, that's right. The windows currently have asbestos. He did say that during that meeting. So you already know you have environmental. So if you start, it depends on what you're going to do with those windows. You got to be very careful, or that asbestos is going to be everywhere anyways. So you're going to be bringing people in. But I'll ask them and see what they say.
If those windows have asbestos, the only thing you're going to be able to do is put some plastic over the outside or inside so that nothing becomes friable. Once that stuff becomes friable, then you got a whole nother ball game to play with.
You encapsulate the windows when you take them out.
It's the caulk, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
It's the caulk that is the asbestos. So as long as the caulk's not disturbed, I don't know what that would look like. Maybe we could ask Tom Z or just some.
No, I'll get it from High Caps. I mean, the two Toms are not experts with building.
Okay, so I'm going to go down and ask for you to think about this. Are you good for holding off to January 6th being the drop dead date, and June 6th, I'm sorry, and we ask the manager to go forth and resolve these questions?
You're saying, say that to me. So you're just wanting us to commit to June 6th as adopting the budget?
No, on this one topic.
Oh, yeah,
This
I'm
one
good for
topic,
waiting for this
drop
topic.
dead date,
Yes.
and we get the answers to the
And we make a decision.
suggestions that you and Alderman Kelly have made. And what does that mean? Yes.
Yes.
I will wait, but I want to fund it 700,000.
Alderman Ladd.
I can wait.
All right, if the manager would be so kind as to put that down in your 4 million notes there. Okay. The next one is the Parks building improvements for,
I would assume you want me to do the same thing and get the information for Friday. I'll be
Yes.
glad to.
okay, the stormwater design, which is 75,000. Could you explain that to us, ma'am?
Yes, Tom Z has a lot of state and grant money, but that's going to be running out because there's deadlines. So the question is to continue doing actual work, then we want to have the 75,000 to start actually getting things done here.
I say yes. We've got to begin with our stormwater.
Alderman Davis. Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Spencer.
Yes.
Alderman Lay.
Yes.
All right, next issue is sidewalk repairs.
The board has talked about sidewalk repairs and new sidewalks for quite some time. So obviously, we're not going to be able to do any bonding with roads. So the Powell bill money really needs to go to roads. So I put in $100,000 just to get these sidewalks repaired because they are going to start becoming liabilities with tripping. I mean, I know I've had reports from all of you at one point or another about tripping hazards on those sidewalks. They haven't been touched.
I'm a yes.
Is the 100,000 for repairs or new sidewalks or long stretches of new
It could be,
sidewalks
I
or
would
what?
think you could spend it just on repairs. I mean, there's a lot of issues on these sidewalks.
Alderman Davis?
It's not all of them, is it?
Oh, no.
I mean, some of them are okay.
This would never cover all of them.
Okay, I didn't think
So there'll
so.
be a priority list and then we'll
Wanted
go
to be
down.
sure. Okay, yes.
Alderman Kelly?
So this is addressing safety issues on our current sidewalks, correct?
It is.
All right, then yes.
Alderman Spencer?
Yes.
Alderman Lay?
Yes.
Thank you. Community, oh God. The community center deck.
Yes. This is we use this as a revenue generator. We have to have a good facility.
Alderman Carroll. No. Alderman Davis.
You all, I'm sure by now, know that I am passionately opposed to keeping that deck as is. This is not the deck, the raised deck that's out over the bank. This is the platform itself. And as we continually talk about trying to reduce the impervious surfaces, this is an impervious surface. And I think at the very least, we can wait another year and maybe get some more estimates and look at some things that would be other options. So, no.
I'm not sure, I'm not questioning the policy decision you're talking about, but I am questioning whether or not that's impervious because the water runs between that and goes to the dirt below it. There's some small portion of that that is in fact concrete, but I don't know that any of us have any idea how big that is. So that's the only thing.
Water
I point out.
pools on it, so I don't think it's all that
My deck,
impervious, really.
water pools on my deck too, but it seeps through and wets everything below it.
I am not rehashing the material. I'm just saying this isn't the year. I am with you, yes. We are in the same room.
Alderman Kelly.
I think that the community building is a generator for us, and we have to spend the money where we're going to make the money back. So yes.
Alderman Spencer.
Wait one more year.
I'm sorry. No. Alderman Lay, it comes down to you.
As much as I hate it, I think we got to wait another year.
It's a no. All for different reasons, though, Lo. All for different reasons. Franklin Square Park. Any bidders on that?
This is for continuing to take care of.
Yes. Alderman Mosteller. Alderman Davis.
Yeah, if we don't do this, we're going to end up a few years from now having to pay big money again.
Alderman Kelly.
I think we have begun this process, and we need to continue. So it's a yes.
Is that limited to trees?
No, I think it's the whole park. It's, in other words, part of that. If I understood Scott Lay the other day, somebody has to figure out what the design is. We don't need an engineer to do that, like a path thing.
Yep.
And then mulch and dirt and all of that.
Maybe some walls, brick walls, block walls, something like that.
As long as it's not in the right of way.
I hear you. I'm with that. Okay, yes. Yeah.
Alderman Lay.
After that, yes.
All right. So, to refresh my memory, what did we decide on the $300,000 for the city hall was a no?
It's a no.
And the tennis court resurfacing was? Was a
No.
no. So that's $460,000 right there. With it-
Friday morning, Lance will do the magic of everything you've done, and we'll start the meeting with what the new amount is in the budget.
So, city manager, are you in the position that we have done our day's work?
Nah. I guess my only other question would be is if anybody else has anything major in the departments right now. Because Friday, we're really only going to have 2 hours, and that part of that is the rate report, and Sarah, what's the second one? God, I already forgot. Oh, how to try to help you fill the gap for next year. So I'm not sure, that's why I'm saying right now, if you know of anything else you feel very strongly about in other departments, if we could get that now, I'd appreciate it.
One thing too about the 300,000 for City Hall, you might want to give us a number that if you're still going to need some money to do things, so you may want to come back. That occurred to me. And then just about the park maintenance shifts that are shifting over, I just had a couple of questions about that. Are you creating different job descriptions for that?
Heather's been working with Patty to put those together.
Okay, and so are you going to sort of, I guess, advertise them internally first and then out? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, and then if somebody leaves, you really need to, for efficiency's sake, we would be, in building and grounds, we would be eliminating 2 positions so that then it just rolls over.
So on Friday, I just want to make sure I understand. We're going to come back to the firefighter and EMS positions. We're also going to have some additional information on the city building repairs, the old city hall, environmental and parks building improvements.
More even on my list, so yeah, I've got a whole list of everything we need to report back on Friday.
I just want to confirm that you're going to resend the email that said if we were to handle all the special events going forward,
Oh, shoot, yeah, I can do it right now.
we would figure out how much that would be, and would that be enough to, like, think about an employee?
Go ahead, I can look while
Okay. Alderman Kelly, got any thoughts?
Good work today, everybody.
Alderman Spencer.
No, sir, thank you.
Alderman Lay.
I'm done.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's been a motion, a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? The unanimous. Thank you.